One of the interesting results of Tuesday's election was a local vote on a very specific topic, and that was fracking. Now, this is important specifically because the vote happened in Denton, Texas, which is widely considered to be the birthplace of fracking. But what they voted on was not to sort of commemorate their contribution to oil drilling. They voted to ban fracking. The birthplace of fracking voted to eliminate it locally in Denton, Texas. Unfortunately, it looks like that's not going to happen, even though they did win in that vote. The town of Denton, Texas voted by a wide margin to ban fracking within the city limits, but 2 days later, the chairwoman of Texas's oil and gas regulator said she would not honor the ban. Her name is Christi, Craddick, and she says, "It's my job to give permits, not Denton's. We're going to continue permitting up there because that's my job." Just to be clear about what they won by, the vote was 59 to 41, so this was not an incredibly close vote in Denton. And bear in mind, this is Texas, of course.
There weren't percentages. It's not like 100 people voted, right?
I hope it's not exactly 100 people living in Denton. There's not that many people to be affected by the fracking, I guess. Now, Christi explains sort of why she thinks they voted the way they did. She says, "We missed as far as an education process in explaining what fracking is, explaining what was going on. And I think the ban is the result of that in a lot of respects and a lot of misinformation about fracking."
I love the misinformation about fracking. $685,000. I'm sure you have these numbers.
Oh yeah, we're going to show.
So let's put those numbers up now, the graphics there. So $700,000, $685,000 spent by the major oil and gas companies, contributing.
Probably most of that pro-fracking.
Right, so that messaging, and then, but environmental groups spreading their lies, they had nearly $25,000. So
exactly.
So somehow, but yet Christi Craddick says that there was this misinformation about the potential dangers of fracking. That's 30 to 1, basically.
I agree with her. I have a feeling that there was a lot of misinformation about fracking, but looking at the numbers, I have a feeling which direction they were biased in.
That said, it is not up to the town to decide. Like, in that sense, I get that, and that's going to be a tough go, but it's still, those votes are important, and political power comes from those votes.
Yeah.
So.
That's true. There have been other localities that have banned fracking. The fact that it's considered the birthplace of fracking obviously makes this a larger news story. I think that symbolically it carries some weight. As Ben points out, yes, there are some things that towns cannot stop from happening in their area. But understand, this isn't like... We think that it's irresponsible in terms of it's a very specific complaints that they have. Residents of Denton complain of poor air quality, disruptive noise in residential areas, and an increase in low magnitude earthquakes. If you live in that town and you see something that is clearly harming both the health and perhaps geological stability of the town you live in, the fact that you have no control over that has got to be extremely disconcerting. It reminds me of South Florida is considering, it might be a county, it's considering breaking off from the rest of Florida because the state is not doing anything to prepare for global climate change. And they're worried that because the state isn't putting any funds into it, eventually they're going to be swept away to sea, almost literally. And so they're considering the drastic move of breaking off to address what they see as a threat to their area. Denton, Texas obviously took a smaller step in banning fracking or attempting to ban fracking. But the fact that people who don't live in that area, don't care about that area, have so much control of the health and well-being of the people who live there, that to me as an American citizen is annoying.
Maybe a town should be able to decide whether or not they want fracking. In fact, they obviously should be, but that's going to have to be written into law. Right? I mean, you can't just say you want something when it's not the town that decides, it's the state decides. But I like that a guy like Mr. Local Control, Rick Perry, and this is a question you want to be asking him right now. So obviously, the people of Denton have spoken. You respect local control. Government should be broken down.
You're going to carve out an exception for that area, right?
Right, should be broken down to its crux, and the people should have to decide here. He'll be like, no, obviously the giant Texas Oil and Gas Regulatory Commission should get to decide that. That's what Rick Perry will say. But eventually from Denton, make sure when the next election comes around and you send somebody to the State House, make sure he's an anti-fracking guy.
Yeah.
Make sure that guy wins so that he can take that voice there and that he can at least propose legislation to all those Republicans in the Texas State House that says, okay, I'm not saying the town, right now I get it, the town doesn't have to decide. Let's say that we make it so towns do get to decide. And let's let them decide.
I think in conservative Texas that might be popular.
It might be popular. It might be, but again, there will be the same 30 to 1, 40 to 1, 400 to 1 rush of money from the fracking from the oil and gas industry, which will be like, no, we don't want local control. Local control is awesome. We want local control if it means state control. If it's actual local control, well then fuck that.
Yeah. Although from what we saw the last time, it looks like that might be one of the issues, that the messaging just doesn't work. It could be that there's an exception, and obviously it's a small community, but it might be that statewide the messaging fails in the same way. I would say that, look, if somebody's watching this in Denton and they've been thinking about getting into politics, this went 59-41, and they're like, the inhabitants of Denton are going to feel the sting of the state sort of saying, we don't care what you voted on. It might be that in the next election, this is something that you could win on.